Did you know that while most Americans dream of celebrating their 90th birthday surrounded by loved ones, a staggering 85% never make it past 82? The shocking truth isn't about bad genes or bad luck. It's about 5 deadly mistakes millions of seniors unknowingly make every single day. What if I told you that by simply avoiding these common errors, you could potentially add 10 to 15 quality years to your life? Years filled with energy, clarity, and joy, not just existence. As you're reading this, you might be making mistake number 3. It's so common that 9 out of 10 seniors do it daily without realizing the damage. And mistake number 5? It's the silent killer that most doctors rarely discuss because it seems too simple to be true. Stay with me, because what you learn in the next few minutes could literally be the difference between celebrating your 90th birthday or becoming another heartbreaking statistic. Meet Richard Wilson, a vibrant 74-year-old retired high school football coach from Minneapolis. 3 years ago, Richard was the picture of what he thought retirement should look like. He walked his golden retriever buddy around the neighborhood each morning, met his buddies for coffee twice a week, and prided himself on managing his own home and yard without help. "I was doing just fine," Richard often said, "taking my meds, watching my cholesterol, and staying busy enough." But everything changed on a snowy December morning. While clearing his driveway, something he'd done hundreds of times before, Richard slipped and broke his wrist. What seemed like a routine injury led to a cascade of revelations at the hospital. Borderline diabetes, dangerous vitamin deficiencies, early signs of cognitive decline, and dangerously high blood pressure despite his medications. His doctor didn't mince words. "Rich, at this rate, you'll be lucky to see 80, and the quality of those years isn't looking good." Those words hit Richard like a freight train. As a coach who'd spent decades pushing young athletes to reach their potential, he couldn't accept that his own final quarter would be played from the sidelines. "I've never backed down from a challenge," he told his concerned daughter, "and I'm not starting now." Richard's determination led him on a mission to understand why seemingly healthy seniors like himself were dying younger than expected, and what he could do to change his own trajectory. What Richard discovered shocked him to his core, and it might shock you too. The CDC reports that average life expectancy hovers around 79 years, but what they don't emphasize is that most people lose their quality of life years before that. The real tragedy? These early deaths and declining years are largely preventable. Today, at 77, Richard is healthier, stronger, and sharper than he was at 72. His transformation didn't come from expensive medical procedures or miracle cures. It came from eliminating 5 specific mistakes that he, like millions of American seniors, had been making daily. Let's dive into the first deadly mistake that could be stealing precious years from your life right now. Mistake number 1, the medication multiplication trap. Richard's medicine cabinet used to look like a mini pharmacy. Sound familiar? He took 11 different medications daily. Pills for blood pressure, cholesterol, arthritis pain, sleep issues, acid reflux, and more. "I had a pill for everything," Richard admits, "and a routine that took me 20 minutes every morning just to sort out what to take when." But here's the terrifying truth that Richard discovered. Taking 5 or more medications increases your risk of death by 88%, according to groundbreaking research from Johns Hopkins University. The problem isn't necessarily each individual medication. It's what happens when they interact inside your body. Richard was shocked to learn he was taking 2 different medications with blood-thinning properties prescribed by different specialists who never communicated with each other. Add his daily aspirin to the mix, and he was unknowingly putting himself at serious risk for internal bleeding. The medication trap goes deeper than just dangerous interactions. Each new symptom often leads to another prescription, creating a vicious cycle that Richard calls the prescription cascade. His sleeping pills caused daytime drowsiness, so he was prescribed something for energy, which caused stomach issues, leading to antacids, which interfered with absorption of other medications and nutrients, causing new symptoms requiring, you guessed it, more medications. Richard's turning point came when he experienced unusual bruising after a minor bump against his kitchen counter. His pharmacist, not his doctors, was the one who spotted the dangerous interaction between his medications. "Mr. Wilson," she said, "these 3 medications together are basically turning your blood into water. We need to address this immediately." Working with his primary care physician, Richard implemented what he now calls his medication audit system. First, he created a comprehensive list of everything he was taking, including over-the-counter medicines and supplements, and shared it with all his doctors. He scheduled quarterly medication reviews with his pharmacist. He insisted that all his specialists communicate before prescribing anything new. Most importantly, he began questioning every prescription. Is this treating the actual problem or just masking symptoms? Could lifestyle changes work instead? What's the plan to eventually get me off this medication? Within 6 months, under careful medical supervision, Richard safely reduced his medications from 11 to just 4. The transformation was remarkable. His mind cleared. That brain fog wasn't aging, it was medication side effects. His energy returned. Most surprisingly, many of the issues he was medicating turned out to be side effects of other medications, not separate conditions. The joint pain he was taking 2 medications for, a side effect of his cholesterol medication. The sleep problems requiring sleeping pills, caused by taking his blood pressure medicine too late in the day. I'm not saying medications aren't necessary, Richard emphasizes. Some absolutely are, but more isn't better, and many of us are taking things we don't need that are actually making us sicker. Richard now follows what he calls the stamp protocol before accepting any new medication. S. Is this treating a symptom or the actual cause? T. Have we tried non-drug approaches first? A. Are all my doctors aware of this addition? M. Will this mix safely with everything else I'm taking? P. What's the plan to eventually reduce or eliminate this medication? Are you taking multiple medications? When was the last time you had all of them reviewed together by one healthcare provider? This simple step could literally save your life. It certainly changed Richard's. But medications weren't the only invisible threat lurking in Richard's daily routine. Let's talk about mistake number 2, the invisible poison in your pantry. When Richard opened his kitchen cabinets 3 years ago, everything looked reasonably healthy. After all, he'd been listening to conventional wisdom, low-fat crackers, heart-healthy cereals, diet sodas, and plenty of those whole-grain breakfast bars. I thought I was doing everything right, Richard recalls with a rueful shake of his head. What Richard didn't realize was that he was consuming what geriatric nutritionists now call age accelerators, foods that speed up cellular aging and chronic inflammation. The biggest culprit? Hidden sugars and artificial sweeteners hiding in plain sight. That healthy granola bar in his pantry contained 24 grams of sugar, more than a Snickers bar. His sugar-free drinks were loaded with aspartame, which recent research from the American Academy of Neurology links to increased stroke and dementia risk in seniors. Even worse, these foods were triggering dangerous insulin spikes that were pushing him toward full-blown diabetes. Richard's nutritional wake-up call came during a grocery shopping trip with his daughter-in-law Susan, a registered dietitian. "Dad," she said, picking up his favorite heart-healthy bread, "did you know there's high-fructose corn syrup in this?" As they moved through the store, the revelations continued. His low-fat products were packed with sugar to improve taste. His canned soups, which he ate for lunch most days, had sodium levels that could spike blood pressure dangerously. The processed meats in his refrigerator contained nitrates linked to cognitive decline. But the real shock came when Susan pointed out that Richard was chronically dehydrated. "I'm not thirsty," he insisted. "That's exactly the problem," Susan explained. "At your age, your thirst signals have diminished. It's a normal part of aging. But your need for water hasn't." Richard was drinking just 2 to 3 glasses of water daily, while consuming dehydrating caffeine and his evening bourbon. This chronic dehydration was stressing his kidneys, causing constipation, increasing fall risk through blood pressure fluctuations, and even contributing to his cognitive fog. Determined to change, Richard revolutionized his kitchen with what he now calls his 5-55 rule. 5 ingredients or less in any packaged food. 5 glasses of water by 5 p.m. to avoid nighttime bathroom trips. 5 different colored fruits and vegetables daily. He replaced his packaged snacks with nuts and seeds. Sugary drinks gave way to herbal teas and water infused with berries or cucumber. Processed meats were swapped for lean proteins like fish and chicken. White bread and whole grain imposters were replaced with actual whole grains like steel-cut oats and quinoa. The hydration breakthrough came when Richard implemented his water-first ritual. A full glass of water immediately upon waking, a water bottle marked with hourly goals, herbal tea counted toward daily hydration, and water-rich fruits like oranges and berries for snacks. The first week was tough, Richard admits. I was in the bathroom constantly and craving my usual foods. But by week 2, something remarkable happened. I started feeling actually hungry for real food instead of just eating out of habit or cravings. The results were nothing short of remarkable. Richard's prediabetes markers reversed within just 4 months. His energy levels soared. Even his skin looked younger and less dry. The joint pain he'd been experiencing for years decreased as inflammation subsided. His kidney function improved dramatically. But here's what shocked him most. His grocery bill actually decreased by 35% as he stopped buying expensive processed foods and started cooking simple meals from basic ingredients. People think eating healthy is expensive, Richard says. But a bag of apples costs less than those fancy nutrition bars, and a carton of eggs is cheaper than most breakfast cereals. Plus, I'm spending a fraction of what I used to on medications. Take a moment right now. Stand up, walk to your kitchen, and check one item in your pantry. How many ingredients does it have? Can you pronounce them all? This simple awareness could be your first step toward adding years to your life. Now, prepare yourself for mistake number 3, the one that nearly cost Richard his independence and quality of life. Mistake number 3, the mobility mindset death spiral. "I'll just be more careful," Richard told himself after his fall on the ice. That seems sensible, right? He stopped taking stairs whenever possible. He avoided walking on uneven ground like the park trails he used to enjoy. He even installed a shower chair just to be safe. In short, Richard began limiting his movements in countless small ways, all in the name of preventing another fall. What Richard didn't realize was that this careful approach was actually one of the deadliest mistakes seniors make. Here's the brutal truth. Fear of falling creates a vicious cycle that virtually guarantees you will fall. When Richard restricted his movements, his muscles began to weaken at an alarming rate. His balance deteriorated from lack of practice. His bones became more brittle without weight-bearing activity. Within just 18 months of becoming more careful, Richard could barely get out of a chair without using his arms to push himself up. The statistics are staggering. Seniors who limit activities due to fear of falling are 3 times more likely to fall within a year than those who stay active despite their fear. Worse yet, each week of physical inactivity ages your muscles by the equivalent of 6 months. Richard was literally aging himself to death by trying to stay safe. His wake-up call came when his 5-year-old grandson asked to be picked up during a family visit, and Richard couldn't lift him. That moment broke my heart, Richard recalls, tears welling in his eyes. I'd always been strong. As a coach, I could demonstrate any exercise. Now I couldn't even lift a small child. The physical therapist he consulted didn't sugarcoat the situation. Richard, you're 74 with the muscle mass of someone 85. Your protective instincts are killing you. That harsh reality check sparked Richard's transformation. He began what he calls his Power of 3 program. 3 balance exercises while brushing his teeth, 3 strength moves during TV commercials, and 3 flexibility stretches before bed. He started with the most basic moves, standing on one foot for 10 seconds while holding the sink, sitting and standing from a chair without using his hands, gentle toe touches while seated. The progression was remarkable. In the first week, Richard struggled to balance on one foot for even 5 seconds. His legs trembled, his arms flailed, and he was frustrated by how much strength he'd lost. But he persisted, reminding himself of the countless times he'd told his players, "You don't win by giving up at halftime." By week 4, Richard was able to balance for 30 seconds without holding on. By week 12, he was doing squats and even attempting light single-leg exercises. In 6 months, Richard was back to walking the local park trails, cautiously at first, and eventually with his grandkids in tow, hiking over gravel and grassy hills. But it wasn't just about building muscle. Richard joined a local senior fitness class, initially just for the company, but soon discovered that the laughter, encouragement, and camaraderie of the group kept him coming back. His consistency doubled when exercise became a social activity. He started carrying groceries in different ways to build grip strength, practiced getting up from the floor, a skill critical for recovery after a fall, and made it a habit to take stairs whenever possible. He even incorporated dancing at community events and weddings, rekindling an old love and challenging his coordination and memory. The real magic, Richard says, came from shifting his mindset. Instead of avoiding challenges, he began seeking them out. He walked on grass and gravel rather than always choosing the smooth sidewalk. He practiced balancing on one leg while waiting for the popcorn to finish in the microwave. Every time I pushed my limits, I felt a little bit younger, he says. Today, at 77, Richard can deadlift 70 pounds at the gym and even leads a beginner chair yoga session at his local community center. His bone density improved by 13%, and he hasn't fallen or even stumbled in over 2 years. Most importantly, Richard now lives with confidence instead of fear, travels on his own, and plays actively with his grandchildren, giving piggyback rides and all. Now let's talk about a mistake that creeps into the lives of 7 out of 10 seniors, often without anyone realizing it until the damage is done. Mistake number 4, the social isolation time bomb. After retirement, Richard relished the peace and quiet. No more school bells, no more parents calling to complain about playing time, no more late-night storms destroying the turf. At first, the silence felt like freedom, Richard recalls, but before long, it turned into an echo chamber. There were days when Richard realized he hadn't spoken to a single person, aside from a brief hello to a neighbor or the cashier at the grocery store. What Richard didn't know was how devastating loneliness can be for seniors. Studies show that social isolation is as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day and increases the risk of premature death by 50%. For older adults, loneliness is linked to rapid cognitive decline, weakened immunity, higher blood pressure, and a doubled risk for dementia. The COVID pandemic made it worse. Richard's monthly poker night was canceled, church went online, and family visits shrank to video calls and drive-by waves. The turning point came early one morning when Richard's daughter, worried by his foggy memory and sadness, dropped by to find him eating breakfast in the dark. "Dad," she said, "when's the last time you talked with a friend, face to face?" Tears started to well up in Richard's eyes as he realized he couldn't remember. "I feel like I'm fading away," he admitted. That was the day Richard decided to reclaim his connections. He started small, waving to neighbors, lingering for coffee at the local shop, and volunteering to greet folks at his church when services resumed in person. He joined a men's breakfast group at the community center and rediscovered the fun of a lively debate on football or fishing. Richard became a regular at the library's Friday afternoon book club, found purpose volunteering at a VA hospital, and used technology for regular video calls with his grandchildren. But the real breakthrough came when Richard, inspired by his coaching days, started a Tuesday Touchdown Club, a weekly gathering for widowers and retirees in his building, featuring sports talk, card games, and potlucks. What began with 3 men soon grew to 15, with conversations that ranged from old war stories to new jokes, and even a few dating tips exchanged. Richard learned that the key wasn't just being around people, but making those interactions deep and meaningful, listening, sharing emotions, and staying actively engaged. Regular laughter soon replaced the dull ache of loneliness. Within weeks, his vocabulary, memory, and mood noticeably improved. His blood pressure dropped, and his doctor commented on his remarkable turnaround. Today, Richard enjoys 3 close friendships with daily contact, a dozen social acquaintances, and volunteers every week, providing mentorship to young coaches and support to new retirees in his town. Now, let's turn to the final, and perhaps the most overlooked, mistake. Mistake number 5, the memory myth massacre. Like many seniors, Richard once believed that it was natural to forget things as you get older. He laughed off his senior moments and told himself it was just part of aging. But the day he forgot his own nephew's name at a family barbecue, panic set in. Richard started to worry that all the crosswords and puzzles in the world couldn't save his mind from decline. Here's the shocking truth. Accepting memory loss as inevitable actually accelerates cognitive decline by 60%, according to recent research. By assuming that forgetfulness was just what happens, Richard, and so many like him, were letting their brains atrophy. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, doesn't stop at 60, 70, 80, or even 90. When Richard stopped challenging his mind, assuming decline was his fate, his brain, like his muscles, began to shrink and weaken. It all came to a head on a Sunday drive to visit his sister. Richard, who'd made that trip hundreds of times, became completely disoriented. He had to pull over, call his daughter, and admit that he had no idea where he was, or how he'd gotten there. The humiliation was total. "That was my lowest point," he says. "I felt like I was losing myself, piece by piece." Determined not to accept decline, Richard created what he called his mind over matter protocol. Each morning, he spent 15 minutes on a brain training app and made a game of memorizing the grocery list or the names of every server at his favorite diner. Every afternoon, he learned something new: Spanish for his trip to Mexico, the basics of oil painting, and even a few songs on the harmonica. In the evening, he kept a journal, writing out memories, gratitude lists, and the story of his life for his grandchildren. Before bed, Richard read history books and biographies, jumping into books that challenged rather than comforted him. One of Richard's most powerful discoveries was that physical exercise improved his brain more than any puzzle. After a brisk walk, he noticed his memory and mood always improved. He joined a dance class at the community center, learning new steps and following routines that combine movement, music, and memory. The combination was electric. He was learning, moving, laughing, and socializing all at once. Richard found that teaching himself new skills, like ordering his meal in Spanish at the local Mexican cafe or painting a landscape from a photograph, created a sense of challenge and accomplishment he hadn't felt in years. He also adopted proven memory techniques, using visualization to remember lists, crafting stories to link facts, and teaching others what he learned. This last step, explaining a new concept to a friend or grandchild, not only kept his mind sharp, but also deepened his relationships. The results? In 6 months, Richard's cognitive test scores improved by over 40%. He felt more alert and focused. Old friends commented that he seemed 10 years younger. His neurologist even told him that his latest brain scans looked as healthy as men 15 years his junior. I realized that believing in my brain's ability to grow was the first step to making it happen, Richard says with a smile, waving a paperback in one hand and a Spanish dictionary in the other. The moment you decide you're finished learning is the moment your brain starts dying. Richard's transformation extended far beyond numbers on a chart. 3 years ago, he was a statistic waiting to happen. Borderline diabetic, socially isolated, dependent on a dozen medications, physically weak, and quietly slipping away mentally. His doctor's prediction had seemed grim. Continue like this, and you'll have maybe 5 to 7 more years with declining quality of life. Today, Richard is almost unrecognizable to friends who knew him in his early 70s. At 77, he takes only one prescription, his blood pressure medicine, walks Buddy twice a day, deadlifts his own body weight, and just returned from a hiking trip in the Grand Canyon with his daughter and grandkids. His latest blood work astonished his doctor. "Rich, you've got the biomarkers of a man in his 50s. But even more important than physical health is Richard's enthusiasm for life. "I wake up every day with a sense of gratitude and possibility," he says. "I travel, I mentor younger coaches, I have deeper friendships than ever before, and I'm more confident than I was at 60. He's already signed up for a salsa class and is planning a big 80th birthday celebration, complete with dancing and a performance on the harmonica. What made the difference? Richard didn't just tweak a few habits. He completely changed his mindset about aging. He stopped seeing decline as inevitable and started treating every day as an opportunity to become stronger, smarter, and more socially connected. "I was dying a little every day by playing it safe," Richard reflects. "Now I'm living boldly, taking calculated risks, trying new things, and making every day count." So, let's bring this home. Which of these 5 deadly mistakes hit closest to home for you? Are you taking too many medications without regular review? Is your pantry filled with foods that secretly sabotage your health? Have you stopped challenging your body because of fear? When was the last time you had a real, deep conversation with a friend or learned something completely new? Take a moment to reflect. Comment number 1 to number 5 below to let us know which habit or mistake you plan to tackle first. And if this story opened your eyes, please share it with someone you care about. It could change or even save their life. Don't wait for a fall, a diagnosis, or a moment of panic to make your move. Start your transformation today, one step, one conversation, one new challenge at a time. Because here's what Richard would want every older American to know. Aging isn't your enemy. Fear is. You're not here just to count down the years, but to fill every day with meaning, connection, energy, and hope. It's not just about adding years to your life. It's about adding life to your years. Your best decade isn't behind you. It's waiting for you to claim it. So go ahead, walk that extra block, call that old friend, try that new recipe, sign up for that class, ask your doctor the tough questions, and never, ever stop learning. Richard's message is simple but powerful. Don't spend your best years preparing to die. Spend them planning to live.